Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name's Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
And today's August 9th, 2016.
No, it's August. Oh, 2000. I thought it was August 16th. The heat.
You know, it's just beginning.
2006, August 9th. Okay.
All right.
All right.
And I'm going to actually start off with an announcement. I have now officially received my new MIT ID card, and I can now, thanks to the benevolence of MIT,
You can ride the MBTA forever.
I can
Just like
I
Charlie.
can be like Charlie.
Yeah, except you can get off and on.
Right. Anyway, I'm quite happy.
That was a nice Benny to give to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to wait to 62.
Yeah, and there's so I don't forget.
Yeah.
I just want to mention coming up later this month and into early September, there are a couple of annual events that you may be interested in. The first one is the old-time baseball game that Steve Buckley and company put together.
I only went to that once.
Up at St. Peter's Field up around North Cambridge.
Yeah.
That's actually taking place on Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. And the inimitable Glenn Kuchar, I'm sure, will once again be doing the play-by-play behind home plate, along with Karen Costa and company.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, that's this is for like a lot of real Cambridge people, and a lot of political people too are actually there.
Yes.
Actually, I found wandering around the stands one time at one of the games was Oil Can Boyd, formerly the Boston Red Sox.
Oh yeah.
So
and occasionally we'll get some baseball type there, right?
Yeah, Lou Merloni, formerly of the Red Sox. Lou plays every year.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And various other characters are they come back every time, and they all wear old-time baseball uniforms.
And if it's hot, it's really hot.
It is a great time.
Yeah.
So if you're around on August 25th, come on down. Another thing which I think is something everybody should do at least once, and if you've lived in Cambridge your whole life, you've probably done it many times. This is actually coming up Saturday, I think it's Friday, September 9th through Sunday, September 11th. Is the Feast of the Italian Saints of Cosmos and Damian in East Cambridge, down on Warren Street.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually State Senator Sal DiDomenico and his family are the ones who inherited the responsibility of maintaining the feast.
That's my state senator, I think.
Yeah, he's my state senator as well.
He is? Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's coming up in, I think it starts...
It's a weekend.
Yeah, it's a weekend. It's like Friday, September 9th, 6 p.m. Through Sunday, September 11th. And it's a great time. It's, fried dough. It's like carnival rides.
I've been to the one in the North End,
music,
but I don't think I've been to that one.
Yeah, I think Tony Orlando is going to be there, the Drifters. So it's real like old-timey stuff.
Really?
For people who think Cambridge is nothing but like Sullivan Chamber and City Council and activists and whatever, this is a real taste of the other side of Cambridge, and it's really a great time. So come on down. So let's see. So what else we have going on around town? A lot of stuff going on outside of town, like nationally, but we should touch on
the Olympics, but
the Olympics.
I find the Olympics a nice distraction to the politics going on. So.
Yeah, actually, I don't usually watch too much of the Olympics, but I have to say, and I don't usually find myself getting all worked up and cheering for people, but when I was watching the relay swimmers with Michael Phelps as the second leg, and he turned, was it the third leg? But anyway,
he was I forget, you're right.
The thing is the United States was like down
a few seconds
for the first leg, the second leg, and then he went in there and he reversed it, put us in the lead, and then we held the lead. And I was actually pretty thrilled. So I thought that was great. And then was it Katie Ledecky was the women's swimmer?
I watched that the day before.
It's just stunning to watch somebody who's like she's like another species.
She is. She was far. She broke her own world record.
By quite a margin, actually. So I do like watching some of those things. And honestly, after the political conventions, which had its highlights and its lowlights, what a nice distraction.
Well, it's the disharmony. I mean, obviously we're not talking about things going on in the streets in Rio, but considering everything that people expected, I think they're doing a pretty good job, or at least they're not letting us see it.
Really. Yeah, hopefully no more body parts washing up on the beach over where the volleyball's taking place.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, that was in the news a few weeks before the Olympics.
Oh, a few weeks before.
Yeah. No, not during the Olympics. I'm sure they've got safety nets out in the
Except, they cannot get coffee in the Olympic Village.
We can't
They
get
can only
coffee?
drink Coca-Cola. 'Cause
Really?
that's the sponsor. Yeah, I think that's pretty bad.
That is pretty
As
good.
people have said, Brazilian coffee is really good, so that's pretty bad. And McDonald's. So
Yeah. Oh, that's something.
there are downsides.
All right. So
So local.
let's get local here. All right. So one thing that we talked about last week, which I think I characterized it as sort of a very minor little issue, but which I found particularly interesting, was there was an application for, I think it was from Pill Hardware in Central Square. Just wanted to put out some stuff in front of the business, and it ended up being made subject to the charter right by Councilor Devereaux. So. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of weird, because historically in Central Square, and we showed a picture, I'll show a better picture this week.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the norm, and it actually is the norm elsewhere. So I thought we'd actually show some pictures. Actually, let's go to the black and white one.
Yeah, we showed that one last week.
Yeah, but this is a bigger version of it here. So we're going to just sort of show some of these. I think we're queued up for this now. Let's see.
I think it's.
Oh, I think I have to do this here.
You're right.
All right, there we go. See, high tech.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
There it is.
So anyway, so there's an image just showing a little snapshot of taken in 1956, I believe. Central Square. This is down close to the Lafayette Square end of things, and you'll notice there under the baby furniture sign, there's like ladders, and I couldn't even tell you exactly what's in the image over there, but it was just pretty much a standard picture of
Plus further down, there's things in front of whatever that place is, Central Surplus.
Central Surplus, yeah.
There.
So anyway, I was just highlighting this here because the fact is that now at Pill Hardware, the proposal to have pretty much what you're looking at in this picture here, have that be there was, basically tabled, so if it's going to happen at all, it won't even happen until mid-September.
Should we show the one from Inman?
Yeah, so let's just scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's just, and I'm not trying to get Inman Square Hardware into any trouble here, but here we have a
Doing that for years.
as long as I can remember, for 30.
No one's ever said anything.
Almost 40 years. This is Inman Square Hardware, which is my favorite hardware store in the city by far. And you see here, exactly what you see: garbage cans and various other items. I think there's some ladders down in the rear there. Some things relative to gardening.
Are they tied together? Is he afraid of someone walking off with them?
I don't know. I don't think people really would.
Yeah.
And there are people in the store that are, the cash register's not far from there anyway.
Is there another view of this?
Yeah, well, actually go down a little bit further. This is actually right down the street, further down Cambridge Street.
Oh, that's another one.
This is City Paint and Supply.
Right.
And what do you see out in front?
Yeah.
Rakes, ladders, garbage
Trash
cans,
barrels,
or whatever.
right.
So I was just bringing these out here just to kind of remind people that in fact what Pill Hardware was asking to do is nothing particularly special, right?
What's this?
Well, what I did is, as I was walking down the street, I was just, focusing a little bit on this fact that there's all sorts of what you might characterize as obstructions on sidewalks. I mean, obviously, some of the ones that everybody would know about would be things like, Hubway bike racks or regular bike racks.
How about eating places?
Eating places, we have sidewalk dining. This is just one particularly quaint little setting outside of a little store along Cambridge Street where they just put a little seat and a little.
That's Boutique Fabulous, I think. Yeah.
Maybe that's what that is, right? They have a little living room lamp set out there. So people do interesting, creative things. And the way I look at it, as long as you maintain your 3.5 feet minimum sidewalk, and I would give it probably considerably more than that in Central Square, then what's the problem?
Yeah.
All right. Actually, I think let's go scroll down one little bit more here. And again, this is an image here. Just is taken right in front of.
This is very common too with that chalkboard. I see that in front of everybody.
Yeah, well, there are actually several items that were made subject to the charter right by Councilor Devereaux having to do with these A-frame signs that businesses are putting out in various places. Now, some places they put it out in a place that really is obstructing sidewalks.
Right.
And there are rules saying how they're supposed to be within X number of feet of the curb. Though you don't really see that being particularly enforced, and maybe it's not so necessary, it should be enforced. But
Yeah.
I chose this image here because if people are complaining about, having some merchandise out on the sidewalk, here you have a bus shelter is actually built smack dab in the middle of the
Yeah.
sidewalk,
Yeah.
restricting the sidewalk far more than anything that was proposed by Pill Hardware.
Right.
News boxes right smack dab in the middle of the sidewalk,
Yeah.
everything under the sun in there. It's just narrowing it down to a pretty narrow lane. So
Is there another image here?
I guess maybe just one more here, and this is just another example. This is over in Central Square in front of Darwin's, the one that's down toward MIT. Again, just showing what you see sort of typically. Now, sometimes that particular sign you'll find actually pushed out a little more in the middle of the sidewalk.
Why is that? What is the purple thing? Did someone
That's just a
decide to
traffic-
paint that purple?
Yeah, a little traffic control box, and somebody decided to get all artsy. Whether it was done officially or
I
not,
was going to say,
who
yeah.
knows?
Who knows? Okay.
But there's plenty of room for everybody to walk, and as long as a person, and again, people should be mindful of people who have
Right.
impaired vision and what have you. But hey, listen, these are sidewalks. This is sort of where life happens, and sometimes the business of business is part of life. So anyway, those are just a few images there, meant primarily just to follow up on some of the discussion we had. I think I made reference to, over on Inman Square Hardware last week, but I just didn't have any images, and I just was going for a walk yesterday. And,
Yeah, that's great. Get it
and
in,
there you go.
Okay.
So anyway, that was something worth mentioning, I thought. Now, let's see, what else do we have going on around here?
Did you go to any meetings last week besides after our
I'm trying to remember now. I think
I didn't go to the second Airbnb meeting. Did
one.
you go to that? I haven't even looked at whatever they...
I believe I may have just
Dropped
popped
in.
in
Was
and
it
then
3
walked
o'clock or
out.
something?
Yeah, it wasn't, I think there was, actually I was there, but only for
Yeah.
a little bit.
There were a lot of
And
people there again, or maybe not?
some of the same people, there were more representatives from Airbnb. It turns out the Airbnb people are actually, they fly in from Chicago and elsewhere.
Wow.
So they've taken this stuff very,
Very
very
seriously.
seriously. But that's actually been in the news. There was supposed to be some Airbnb tax, or the capacity of cities and towns to,
You're talking about state now?
and
Yeah.
the state legislature failed to
I
enact
know,
that.
because, I like Baker, but he's like anything that says tax in it. It's like and Airbnb says do it.
Yeah,
know?
yeah, they say
So-
we'd be more than happy to be taxed.
Yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, I saw that was,
That was unfortunate, yeah.
yeah, but it was interesting. Actually, it was interesting, some of the things that did pass and didn't pass at the state
You're
legislature.
talking about for the deadline.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to in any way want to
Yeah.
give a whole
Right.
list of all of the things that passed. But one thing that apparently did pass, and I don't remember if we mentioned this last week, was the right to give cities and towns the
Speed
rule
limits.
to set local
Yeah,
speed limits.
I think that's great.
I didn't read the exact text of it, whether they have to, I think they do have to kind of make a justification, but they don't have to go to the state
They
for
don't have to get a home
permission.
rule petition, is
Right.
what it
So
is.
as long as they have a good rational basis for it, then they can just lower some streets to 20.
Won't kill people, that's a good
Actually,
rationale.
lower it from 30 to
I know,
25.
30 is so fast.
But the
20
thing,
is actually on a...
there's some roads, I think, even some roads that go through
Cambridge?
town where 30, yeah, if you were like in the central lane on Mass Ave, running down through North Cambridge or something, I don't think that's particularly an issue.
Is there, what do you mean central lane? There's 2 lanes.
Well, North Mass Ave, it's 2 lanes on each side, so the ones closest to the
Okay,
median.
you're talking about really far down a Mass,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like Central
So
Square.
my point is simply that there are
Right,
places
yeah.
where it's totally appropriate.
But I think certainly
Yeah, but there are clearly
side streets should be 20.
a lot of streets that should be, I think any street that is parked, both sides, so
Have
there's
parking,
relative
yeah.
little visibility, so that if
Right.
my criteria is if a pedestrian were to step out between cars, is there
Right.
time to react?
Right,
And in
and when you're going
streets which,
30, that's pretty close.
a fully
fast.
parked street, there wouldn't be time
Right.
to react. So, of course, if you took away the cars, then cars would only, if you took away the parked cars
Yeah.
would go even faster, right? So it's a trade-off. But still, putting a speed limit of 25 on a road like that is a good thing. And there's actually some other designation for, what is it called, a safe zone or something like safety zone, where you can without going to the state, you can also drop it to 20.
But isn't that already in existence for schools? Wouldn't that be
Only for schools, though.
Oh, I see. I think it's 15 around schools.
Yeah, but you could, for example, right in the middle of a heavily traveled, pedestrian traveled
Call that a
business
safety
district,
zone, right.
you could just call that a safety
Like
zone.
Inman Square, you could,
Yeah.
all
No,
those
and-
intersecting.
Yeah, and actually for a lot of parts of Central Square or Harvard Square, I could certainly
Right.
easily make the case for that, to be sure.
So unless it's posted, the speed limit now is 25?
30.
30?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know I remember what it is outside of a thickly settled area, but
Wow.
all of Cambridge is thickly settled. So
Because I do
it's
see a lot of
30.
speed, I do see a lot of signs, but it means they had to put them up to.
Yeah, every time, like
Counter
there are
that.
places like along Western Avenue or Brattle Street that have 25 mile per hour zones. Those were as a result of petitions.
Of course, it would be Brattle Street,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, right. Actually, it's interesting. There's this. It's one of those battles that comes back every few years when somebody will get all hot and bothered about the existence of trucks, especially larger trucks, on city streets. So some people will then argue why we need to have a truck ban on certain thoroughfares.
I think that came up recently, didn't it?
It comes up,
Yeah.
you know, not a 2-year cycle goes by that
Right.
it doesn't come up in some form or
Right.
another. In fact, there was a movement back in, I think, the 1970s, if I'm not mistaken, in Cambridgeport, Riverside area, where I think it was a group called itself Humans Against Loud Trucks.
Wow.
Or HALT.
Huh.
And they protested that. And maybe that's the reason why it's a 25 mile an hour speed limit on Western Ave, for all I know. But the point is often made. I remember people were complaining about we should not allow trucks on Brattle Street, and I think it was back when it was Deputy City Manager Rossi said, well, if you don't allow them on Brattle Street, then you're basically just transferring the problem to Mount Auburn Street. So why don't you talk to the people who live on Mount Auburn
Yeah.
Street and see how they feel
Right.
about that?
Not in my backyard
Right.
type
The
thing.
truth
Yeah.
is that if there are trucks that do have to make local deliveries and they have to get from point A to point B.
What about trash trucks? You probably didn't count those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But the thing is if they do have to have local business, then they are going to have to
Right.
take some road. And you can't just say, well, I've got political friends, therefore
Yep.
they can't be on my street, but they were going to stick them onto your street.
Yeah.
Now, there was a problem, I think it was actually brought up at the last council meeting, or maybe the one before. It must have been the last one, which was that even though large trucks are banned on Prospect Street, north of Massachusetts
Yeah,
Avenue
that's what I'm thinking
to
of.
the
something-
Somerville line,
Yeah.
except for local deliveries. So if
Right.
you're the fuel delivery truck that has to bring
Right.
fuel to the gas station
Yeah.
or whatever. But they don't want to have trucks get off the Mass Pike and barreling down River Street and then continuing over through Union Square, Somerville as a sort of a cut through because they're not allowed to go through the tunnel on the Mass Pike in Boston. That was always the big problem. Trucks were actually diverted off the Mass Pike, and then where were they supposed to go?
Well, there's still a lot of trucks on River Street, but they have to go
Right.
slower.
Well, they're supposed to actually come through, believe it or not, through Central Square and then cut down Main Street. There is an official truck route.
But they do go up river to get to Mass.
They do.
Yeah,
That's right. And
because it's right off the pike.
You cannot ban it.
No, I don't
so-
think you should. That you should go slow.
Right.
And there's also, I think they're not allowed certain times
Right.
after 7 p.m. maybe?
Something like that. But
Yeah,
I know that along Prospect Street, there was a problem where even though they're not supposed to be there, they are there. And it's
Yeah.
kind of not an easy enforcement.
No.
I mean, unless you want to have a cop there, parked there all hours of every
You're talking
day.
about Prospect near the Broadway, or are you talking about further
Well,
down?
from Mass Ave all the way to the Somerville line.
Yeah, because as you closer you get to, it's
yeah.
more.
It used to be a non-issue. When I first moved here, the bridge was closed for years.
Oh, right.
So they
yeah.
couldn't do it anyway.
Right.
But then when the bridge opened, they said, oh boy, new shortcut.
Yeah.
All right.
That's an awful stretch anyway.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. Another thing that maybe we should talk a little bit about the kiosk in
Yeah,
Harvard Square.
that's come up. Is there a committee for that? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, there's a we'll sort of come on down and see if
All
we
right,
can
let
find
me
that
just,
here.
I'll see that.
So there's a process began actually, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe even more years ago, for some redesign work of Harvard Square, right in the heart of Harvard Square, specifically around where the
It's Committee Report
kiosk
5.
and the out-of-town
This one?
news
Yeah.
is. right? And there was a meeting of one of the city council committees that was specifically trying to talk about planning. This is actually a bit of a problem, I have to say, because when the city actually has a process ongoing and then a council committee sort of jumps right in and says, no, we're going to decide what's going on here, then you've got a little bit of a conflict to say, well, who are we supposed to be listening to here? Right, so in other words, the elected body should be working sort of cooperatively with the city departments rather than as separate little advocacy groups. But anyway, so
they
there was
produced a report from a meeting, right?
There was a report, and but what I wanted to show here today was some images.
Okay.
I may have referenced them last time. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think you did.
But it was. So there were some people who were at the city council meeting on August 1st who were very worked up about some of the designs that have been floated for
the summer
kiosk.
meeting. Okay.
Right. Basically, the idea here being at the kiosk, which has been basically dominated by out-of-town news for years, people aren't buying newspapers like they used to, so it's kind of, and I think the long-term lease has run out, so it's time to kind of rethink things, re-envision a little bit.
And the city owns that space?
MBTA has some ownership, the city has some ownership.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure
So
where
it's
it
not
all
a
stands.
privately owned piece of land?
No,
Okay.
but I think the city actually is the one who receives some of the rent for out-of-town news.
I see, okay.
But anyway, I saw that there was some of the people were very bothered by this, saying, there's some inside game going on here where there was a particular architect who actually is a member of the Harvard Square Business Association, so obviously the fix is
bad,
in. But everything I've
rigged.
heard from, I remember seeing public notices about these meetings. I chose not to go to, so it's been a very public process.
Yeah.
But anyway, the interesting thing, so I was going to just show a few images here of the kiosk from historically.
So what year is this?
This is about 1956, I believe. It's certainly in the mid-50s. But and I'll show a sequence of them here. This is basically just to point out here that before out-of-town news occupied this was an active subway entry. I remember when it was a subway entry.
So it's not the subway entry that we see now?
No,
it looks like it.
It's shifted. There's a separate one for that now. They put in fancier new escalators.
Okay.
But actually, they don't have escalators. They have an elevator and a staircase. But they used to have those really funky wooden slat escalators. I remember being on those. It was great.
Wow.
But the thing I was going to point out is that it used to be highly transparent. In spite of its sort of darkness and whatnot, you can look right through the kiosk and see Harvard University right on the other side.
Is there another picture?
So let's see, so here's another one here. Again, just looking straight through, you see Harvard and you see buses going on in the background. Let's take a look here. Again, this is just, you can actually see
that escalator.
You can see these narrow escalators with wooden floor, wooden slats in here. But you definitely kind of get to see a sense of the character of what the kiosk was like up close there.
Yeah.
And let's see, let's go to the next one.
I was trying to read what it said over there. It was very interesting.
Yeah, these actually are really high resolution images when you get them full
Okay,
blown.
so we're looking, is that the Coop over there, or is that where Starbucks is?
You're actually looking across, I believe, over toward where the Worst House used to be. Remember, you can see the street used to be right through there. Now that's closed off, and it's all part of this sort of big triangular island in there right now.
Okay, so
Yeah, so, but that's what it looked like. And as I say, if you look, you can actually see directly through the kiosk. It was very glassy, but it was old and it was sort of dark. All right, but it was very open, and you can see it was really where people collected around there to board buses.
Around there, but the inside, there was no place to sit inside, right? It's not clear there because it looked like it was just stairs going down.
I don't think there was. I don't remember. I think there may have been a newsstand was already operating in there.
Huh.
Yeah, but let's just go down a little bit more here and see.
This is what's
So this is
now.
what it more or less looks like today from 2014, I believe. So you can see here that basically where the newspapers and such are, just pretty much clutters up the front of it.
So is that very top part right here from the original?
Yes, from the original.
So they kept that?
I remember a time it was just sitting, I forget where they had it stored. There was a time
so they brought it back.
Well, in the mid-'80s, this was a big hole in the ground, so everything was taken away.
See, I don't remember.
And then put back, and then this top is really all that was left of the original. It was sort of restored onto a new bottom, where they pretty much matched it to look sort of like it had before. But you see, it's totally opaque.
Yeah.
All right. And I think there's a few more images here that are just basically taken from one of the city reports here. Yeah, and some of them were actually the same ones that we see here. But let's see if we just.
We have 1929 in there.
Yeah. So
So
let's
we-
just scroll down a little bit more here, and we'll see just some scenes from how it was. You'll see little miniatures of some of the images we just showed here.
When did the travel,
That's still, that appeared.
right, but when did that appear?
I think that appeared when they did the big excavation in the mid-'80s for the Red Line
Okay.
extension.
And that has been Cambridge Tourism, or was?
Yeah, the Discovery booth, Cambridge
Okay.
Discovery.
Right.
So let's go down a little bit more here. And this is an artist's conception of what they're thinking it should look like.
Oh,
All right.
looks the same.
It's
Looks
very-
like it used to.
In a way, it
Yeah.
looks like it used to. I think it's meant to be a bit of a restoration. But
So
there are
there's
some
really
people
no,
who
it's
are-
very open. There's no sitting
Yeah.
area inside.
Well, I mean, there are some concepts if you read the full report.
Yeah.
And I do have a link in there somewhere for that, but I don't think that's
So
really
it's
worth looking at.
basically a landmark thing versus
Yeah,
a
I think
commercial
the
entity.
concept here is to turn the
Yeah.
entire area into a much better gathering place than it is now.
Gathering place.
Yeah.
Looks like a
Now, and
gym.
I'll tell you my own personal preference,
Yeah.
because if you look at some of the old images of the kiosk,
Yeah.
you see it was a very active use because it was a subway entry and exit.
Yeah, and this is not a
And a
subway. entry.
newsstand.
Yeah.
So to me, the ideal use, quite honestly,
Yeah.
is if they actually had a little counter around there, and I would turn. People may be horrified by my
Yeah,
saying this,
what
but
are you gonna say?
I would love it if this became a hot dog stand, just like the Tasty used to be, where you could serve sandwiches and just a simple lunch counter in there.
How about a mobile
And open
food truck,
windows.
though?
It could be actually sort of like
a
a
mini-
mobile food truck without the truck.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but then you're
I know, but
giving it to some.
that's okay.
And
The
it's
thing
going to be messy.
it's been a contract with out-of-town news, these long-term
I
contracts.
know, but I think they're trying to
already.
get away from.
But to me, if you want to put it in, make it into some sort of like display space for art, as opposed to an active use for, like hot dog stand or something, I'll choose the hot dog stand, quite honestly.
Well,
So
Yeah, unless they're $5
anyway,
hot dogs.
so we'll come back to this one
Okay.
here in a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit more, but. We're almost out on our first half hour on
right.
this exciting program here, but we'll come back here. Anyway, so there's people are talking about it. And
So is it already formed, or can you still join this committee?
the city process is ongoing, or you can sort of go through the council route, but honestly, as I said earlier, it
Yeah.
really should just be one process, not two, not a
But
political.
I thought there was
one.
a committee that was formed already, or you. looking for
Really, I would
members?
talk to the people in the community development
Okay.
department, but
All
the
right.
political people may look at it otherwise. So anyway, we'll be back in a few minutes. So this has
Okay.
been Cambridge Inside Out.